Hello friends, I'm Rosa, welcome. So today we are maybe a little bit late actually, as in like this video, considering what we're talking about, might be up a little bit late, but we're talking about my February TBR today. So I have 8 books that I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna look down now and then because my notes are down here. My notes being a list of the books that I am reading. My TBR lists are always up for interpretation, if you will. So like, they're not set. If I don't want to read any of the books on my list throughout the month and I want to read something else, I'm gonna read something else. But they're like loose guidelines, if you will. One thing I know for sure though is that throughout February, I kind of want to read a lot of romance. Not too much, but just maybe more than I do on average. And so you'll see that a little bit on this list. I'm including 8 books today instead of the usual 10. I'm reading at a slower pace these days because I just am sleeping horribly. So while I'm trying to figure this out, I just want to not overwhelm myself by setting too high goals. But also, I always find romance easier to read when I'm like exhausted. So I have insomnia issues and go through phases like cycles where at the end of it I'm just so exhausted. I'm kind of in that cycle right now, at that phase right now. And so when I go to bed, which is where I usually read, I can't focus, especially not if there's like a lot of world building and stuff and a lot of fancy words that I need to think about, because not fancy words, but you know, like fantasy words. So I'm gonna add a lot of romance to my list this month, but also some sequels. And also, yes, she will be on the list. If you know, it'll be on the list, okay? I just don't have the book right now, but it'll be on the list, okay? But let's get started. As per usual, we're starting with the book club picks. If you want to check out the book club, by the way, there's always a link to it in the pinned comment. We are reading My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine in February, and I am so excited. This is a romance with fantasy and text messages, and I am so ready for this. I think this is supposed to be inspired by Reylo fanfic, or not Reylo fanfic, but like Reylo. So Kylo Ren and Rey, is that her name? I only watched the first one of the new trilogy. I have a very valid reason for not getting past that one. Not because I don't want to watch them, I just don't want to get into it. But anyway, I'll get to it eventually. So I'm like, I don't really remember their names, but I think it's Kylo and Rey, right? As far as I remember at least. But as for what it says, Cassie Greenberg needs a new place to live, and fast. When she finds an affordable apartment in a beautiful neighborhood, she knows there must be a catch. Of course, her new roommate Frederick J. Fitzwilliam is far from normal. That's a mouthful of a name. He sleeps all day, is out at night on business, and talks like he walked out of a Regency romance novel. He also leaves Cassie heart-melting notes around the apartment, always asks about her day, and doesn't look half bad shirtless on the rare occasions they're both home and awake. There's no denying there's a spark between them, but there's also a secret. With true love at stake, will Frederick come clean? I like that. You chose the word stake. I get it. I think the secret is that he's a vampire. I don't know what gave it away. Anyway, I'm excited for this. Will it be love at first bite? I think it's like rom-com, but with like a little bit of fantasy in it. And that sounds like a good mix to me. Oh, we got some Owl Crate hot chocolate that I forgot to take off my shelves. Anyway, first book. What we're also reading is Court of Blood and Bindings, which I don't have a copy of, but it's on Kindle, so I'll be reading it on there. It's on Kindle Unlimited. And it's Romantasy by Lisette Marshall. So think like romance, fantasy, and fae as well. So in this book we follow a girl. I can't recall if she's a human, but she has magic. And there's a fae guy who's sent out seemingly to collect her in some way for the queen. He takes her back to the Fae court, where the queen that rules like all Fae and humans, that's where she resides. I think he works for her, and he's supposed to be like a loyal servant to her, but he's playing some games behind the scenes that she doesn't really know about, and he needs our lead girl's magic to work through these plans that he's got going. So definitely like court scheming, it sounds like. Possibly also reluctant allies, maybe a little bit of enemies to lovers, who knows. But this year I've decided that I want to read a lot of romantasy and a lot of dark romance, so I'm going for it. I'm super excited to be reading it with the book club as well. So Court of Blood and Bindings, it sounds so odd. Sounds like a whole different kind of book. Court of Blood and Bindings. I'll admit, that still sounds like a different book, but it's fine. Moving on. While we're at it, we're going to talk about the two other books that I don't have on hand. Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillick, which is the sequel to One Dark Window. So this is adult fantasy with horror vibes to them, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I was reminded that the first book ends on a cliffhanger. A very mean cliffhanger, because I talked about the book in a video and I instantly put it on my February TBR. So I do think that this duology is very fitting for like September, October, November reading, but I don't want to wait because that cliffhanger is so mean. We're getting it out of the way. Not really, I'm gonna enjoy it so much. But essentially, in the first one, we follow Elspeth, who has been touched by a curse that is kind of like, there's a problem with a curse in this town that she lives in, and especially around the forest, I think it is, and she's been touched by it, so she has some kind of magic. And also, this means that she's kind of like haunted by a nightmare that talks to her. She's like carrying around a nightmare at all times. No one else can see it or hear it, it's just her, but it does give her certain abilities. It's also slowly taken over her, so like she becomes less Elspeth but more nightmare. Meanwhile, there's also this guy that she runs into one day, and he kind of brings Elspeth into his group of people they're a group trying to find these cards, because magic in this world that Elspeth, or at least in the town that she lives in, is done with tarot cards. So I think there's like 13 or 12 total. They give different abilities, but the thing is, this group is trying to collect all of the cards, and one of the things that Elspeth can do is see cards. You can like see light, you know? Like the different cards have different lights. So she's very valuable to them. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna help you, because obviously she wants to also lift this curse so the nightmare's not taken over. But it's not as easy as it sounds. And so I hope I didn't say too much, because there's honestly like a lot going on in that book. There's a romance as well. The magic system is so interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to getting into that universe as well. Again, get that cliffhanger resolved as well. Like, I want to see what happens. Desperately want to see what happens. So Two Twisted Crowns, definitely one of my like earlier February reads, I think. Another one that I don't have my hands on right now, but that I hopefully will receive before the end of the month, is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. Her newest book. I don't think I need to... That's the Owl Crate book that's hiding in the... I forgot to take this down. But anyway, it's the Owl Crate book. It's beautiful. But I don't really think I need to explain too much about House of Flame and Shadow. It's the third one in the Crescent City series. I think most people, I don't want to say most people either, because there's probably some of you out there who have not read them, but you also should not start with Crescent City if you want to get into Sarah J. Maas. It's just the thing about like talking about series on the channel is that by the third book, everything that you're talking about, like everything that's in the first book, it's kind of like not even relevant anymore. But in this series, we follow Bryce, who is a demi-fae. She lives in Crescent City, and she is having the time of her life with her friends. Unfortunately, something happens one night. Her friends, straight up, are killed, and Bryce is the one who finds them. And they find the guy, they put him in prison, but unfortunately, a while later, a couple of years later possibly, the murders, these kind of murders that the method that was used on her friends. Someone's killing more people, more inhabitants in Crescent City with this method. So she teams up with Hunt, who works as a police person. He's an angel, literally. And they try to track down who's causing these murders, or who's doing the murdering. And that's basically what the first one is about, but like there's a whole lot more to it than that. Don't go into Crescent City as your first Sarah J. Maas series though, because there are certain things that you're not going to understand. There are certain Easter eggs that you're not going to pick up on. I would personally probably go into, I really want to say Throne of Glass first. The thing about Sarah J. Maas, so Throne of Glass is like her first book. It's not very well written. Crown of Midnight, a little bit better, but still not great. And then it just takes a twist. Or takes a turn when you get to Air of Fire. I wouldn't start with Ekotar, even though that's, oh, it's so difficult to explain. If you got any questions, let me know, because I will let you know, but I just don't want to sit here and spend so much time in my TBR video talking about it. But personal opinion, start out with Throne of Glass. I know it's a big one to start out with as it's 8 books, but it's so good. It is so amazingly good. So anyway, it's just Easter eggs and like stuff, you know? Don't start out with Crescent City. And I think those were the ones that I don't have as physical copies. So we got four more books. I read The Love Hypothesis during February in 2022. Last year I read Love on the Brain. So I want to read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood here in February. And this is an adult romance, probably with nerdy people, probably someone in STEM, definitely a woman in STEM. Do I know anything other than that? Not really. It's an older brother of her favorite client. So it sounds like sort of like best friend's brother, sort of. Ooh, turns out to be the cold-hearted experimental physicist who ruined her mentor's career and undermined the reputations of theorists everywhere. And he's the same Jack Smith who rules over the physics department at MIT, standing right between Elsie and her dream job. My guess is they're gonna get along just fine. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think they're gonna be just fine. I'm super excited to be reading this. I have loved the other two. Love Hypothesis more than Love on the Brain, but love nonetheless. So we're gonna have a good time with this. Then I have one that I have such a hard time explaining what's about because I'm slightly confused by the summary. I'm not gonna lie, or by the synopsis. But The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. Seemingly something about, is her grandmother? When Georgia Stanton discovers that her late grandmother Scarlett, the infamous romance author, didn't get the chance to finish her last book, she is determined to share her story. But first, it needs to be written. So she teams up with like this world-renowned romance author. He's a guy, and they're gonna finish the manuscript for her grandmother's book. But it's something about, they start going through letters of hers and discover some things about the grandma. Among things that she's had a love story going on with a pilot at some point during the Second World War. I don't know. We'll see. Something like that. So I think this is going to be both a love story but also a romance at the same time. I think the current couple is going to have a happy ending. Possibly, but I don't think there necessarily was one for the grandmother. So we're gonna see about it. It says emotional. Tear my heart out and break it into pieces. I dare you. Feel free to do it though. I'm ready. And then another one that I've heard is supposed to really tear at your heart a little bit. And it's been on my TBR before, but I'm kind of intimidated by it a little bit. Say You Swear by Megan Brandy, not Bannon. Megan Brandy, which I believe is new adult, actually. And I don't really fully know what it's about because all it says on the back is, for years I've dreamt of what college life could bring, and while some things changed, there's always one constant. It didn't matter how wild I allowed my imagination to run, my future was clear and he was it, until suddenly he wasn't. Now there's a new man in my life, one who isn't afraid to go after what he wants, and what he wants is me. And I think it might possibly be whoever that first person is. I think it might possibly be his brother, but I don't know. I don't know. So it's all I know, but I'm very hyped for this, and I'm also very, very scared. I've heard that it's a little bit like also emotional, might be a little bit of a tearjerker, but like I don't fully know. For all I know, it could also be like a 600 pages of smut, like, or 500, not 600. It could also, like, I don't know, so we'll see. And then lastly, oh my gosh, am I excited for this one. Okay, because I loved the first one so much. So I've decided to put Heart of the Sun Warrior by Sue Lynn Tan on my February TBR, which is the sequel to Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which I love so much. I love Shingen so much. Anyway, so we're gonna be reading Heart of the Sun Warrior in February, and I'm gonna have such a good time with it. This is just a duology, I think. There's a collection of short stories that just came out here in, well, at the end of January in the UK, but then at the start of February in the US. I don't have that book yet, but I'd like to get my hands on it at some point before they stop printing the UK edition, so I'll see to it. It'll happen within the next year. But as for Heart of the Sun Warrior, I can't really tell you what it's about, but Daughter of the Moon Goddess, we follow Shingen, who is the daughter of the Moon Goddess. So the story goes that the Moon Goddess was exiled to the moon after her husband, he somehow managed to win over the Celestial Emperor and Empress, and like he did some heroic deed, got a potion of immortality, and then Xinyan's mother, before Xingyan was born, while she was pregnant though, with Xingyan, ended up drinking the potion, and she wasn't supposed to do that, so she was exiled to the moon. While being on the moon, I can't remember what happened to Xingyan's father, but while being on the moon though, she gave birth to Xingyan, so no one knows that Xingyan is alive. Like, no one knows that she exists. And her mother is really trying to keep it that way. To keep Xingyan safe from the Celestial Emperor and Empress. However, Xingyan, because this potion of immortality, was born with magical powers that she's desperately trying to control. Because if she uses them, it will kind of like send off a signal that something is happening on the moon. But unfortunately, they're not super easy to control. So one day her magic flares up and she's instantly like, her mother is instantly like, you gotta leave. They will find out about you. So she runs off, just happens to land in the Celestial Kingdom, where she's suddenly surrounded by enemies that don't know who she is, but still surrounded by enemies. And so while she's there, she befriends the Crown Prince, she studies, she learns how to become a warrior. All this to gain the favor of the Celestial Emperor so that she can honor her mother and basically get permission for her mother to leave the moon again. So there's a whole lot going on in this book. It's like split up in 2 acts. There's like a time jump at some point as well. And there's a bit of a love triangle, I would say, maybe a little bit, but it didn't bother me. I'm someone who's like very against love triangles. Did not bother me one bit in this one. And I might need to remind myself of how the first one ended before going to this one, to be honest. Just like a little bit. But I'm very, very excited to be reading the sequel because I loved the first book so much. Like, I really, really loved it. Adult fantasy, by the way, but also YA friendly, but definitely adult. And I think that is it. So I hope that was 8 books. I hope I remembered all of them. Otherwise, that would be awkward. Although, not surprising. But, yeah. I will be leaving links to all of the books in the description box if you want to check them out. If you have read any of them, without spoilers, feel free to leave your thoughts on them down below. But please, I beg of you, no spoilers whatsoever. You're free to share your thoughts, though, on them in the comment section. But that is all I got for you guys today. So, I hope that you're excited for this upcoming reading month. Every month is a reading month, but like this one. We have an extra day in February this year as well. How exciting is that? So I hope you guys got good reading plans. I hope that your TBRs are looking fabulous. I hope you like mine. And yeah, that is all. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this from me, but also thank you computer for turning on while I was doing my outro. But also all of the other booktube stuff, definitely consider sticking around by clicking on the subscribe button. However, I'm gonna leave you to it. So I hope you all enjoyed this video and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.
Oh, you know you're beautiful, and it's like